The call came on a Tuesday morning, just before 9, when I was still in my robe drinking coffee on the back porch, my daughter-in-law's name on the screen. That alone told me something was wrong because she never called me. Not once in 4 years of marriage to my son had she ever dialed my number directly. She texted sometimes, short things, usually asking me to pass along a message to my son as if I were a relay tower. But a call? I stared at the phone for 2 full rings before I picked up. Dad. She used that word the way people use a key they're not sure fits the lock. The mortgage payment didn't go through this morning. The bank sent a notice. Did something happen with the transfer? I set my coffee down. What transfer? I said. There was a pause. The one you do every month, for the house. I'd been paying the mortgage on their house for 3 years. $4,200 a month, automatically, quietly, without being asked again after the first time I agreed to it. I'd never missed a payment. Never been late. And she was calling me the way you'd call a vendor who dropped the ball. I didn't send it, I said. Another pause, longer this time. Is everything okay? Is there a problem with your account? No problem with my account, I said. I just didn't send it. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, very carefully, she said, Okay, well, can you send it today? I said I'd think about it, and I hung up. I sat there on that porch for a long time. The coffee went cold. A cardinal landed on the bird feeder my wife had put up 20 years ago, the one I'd never taken down after she passed. I watched it eat for a while. Then I thought about the envelope I'd found 3 weeks earlier. Let me back up. My name is not important. What matters is that I spent 31 years building a landscaping business in central Ohio. I started with 1 truck and a push mower I bought secondhand for $60. By the time I sold the company, I had 42 employees, 12 trucks, and contracts with 3 hospital systems and a regional airport. I was not born with money. I made it the slow, muddy, calloused hand way. My wife, Rosalind, died 8 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, quick and merciless. We had 1 son together. His name is Declan. He was 26 when she died, and I think losing her broke something in him that never quite healed right. Or maybe that's just what I told myself, because it was easier than the truth, which is that the warning signs were there long before Rosalind got sick. Declan had never been good with money or with effort. In school, he was smart enough to get by without trying hard, and so he never learned to try hard. He floated. He'd start things and leave them. 2 semesters of community college, then nothing. A job at a hardware store that lasted 5 months. A landscaping gig with my own company. I'd thought it might spark something in him that lasted less than 2. He'd show up late, forget equipment, disappear on his lunch break, and come back smelling like beer at 2 in the afternoon. I let him go. That was the hardest phone call I ever made to my own son. He didn't speak to me for 4 months. When he came back around, things were easier between us. The way things get easier when you stop expecting them to be different. I helped him financially. Groceries, rent, a car payment here and there. I told myself it was temporary. That's what you tell yourself. He met Noelle at a friend's wedding when he was 29. She was sharp-looking, sharp-tongued, and she seemed to have direction, which I hoped might rub off on him. Her parents lived in Scottsdale. Her father was in commercial real estate. They had the kind of money that hangs invisibly in the air around people who've always had it. Noelle and Declan got engaged after 8 months. I bought the engagement ring, $3,200, which I considered reasonable until Noelle returned it and told Declan the setting wasn't right, and they went back together and came home with one that cost nearly $9,000. Declan texted me the new receipt with a smiley face. I transferred the difference without saying anything. That was the beginning of a long education in what I would and would not say. The wedding was what they called intimate. 80 guests at a vineyard outside Columbus. I paid for most of it, the venue, the catering, the photographer, the flowers. Noelle's parents contributed what I was told was the honeymoon fund, which turned out to mean a week in St. Lucia. I was glad to do it. I walked my son down to the altar, and I meant it when I shook his hand and told him I was proud of him. I was. I wanted to be. After the wedding, they moved into a house in a suburb called Powell. Nice neighborhood, good schools, the kind of street where people have seasonal wreaths on their front doors. The house was listed at $410,000. The down payment was $41,000. Declan asked me about it on a Thursday. I wired the money on Friday. He thanked me in a text that said, "You're the best, Dad," and included 2 fire emojis. Then came the mortgage. He said they were a little stretched. Just until he found the right opportunity. He'd been talking to someone about a landscaping franchise, which I found painful in a way I couldn't explain. He said if I could just cover the mortgage for a few months while they got settled, he'd take it from there. I said yes, $4,200 a month. The few months became a year. The year became 2. The landscape franchise conversation disappeared. Declan occasionally mentioned looking into things. I stopped asking about the specifics. What I did not know, until that envelope, was how they talked about me when I wasn't in the room. I had stopped by the house unannounced on a Saturday afternoon in late March. I know better, generally, but I was in the neighborhood. Literally, I'd been to the hardware store 2 miles away, and I'd been feeling the kind of low-level loneliness that comes with being 63 and rattling around a 4-bedroom house by yourself. I just wanted to see my son for 20 minutes. Nobody answered the door. I knocked twice, waited, knocked again. Their cars were both in the driveway. I thought maybe they were out back and couldn't hear me, so I walked around the side of the house. They were on the back patio, Declan and Noel, and they had friends over, 4 or 5 people I didn't recognize. There was a cooler of beer, folding chairs, a Bluetooth speaker going. It was a nice afternoon. Normal and easy and clearly something they did all the time. I was about to call out when I heard Noelle say my name. She was talking to the woman sitting next to her, someone with dark hair and sunglasses, laughing about something. I stopped. "He'll cover it," Noelle said. "He always covers it. Tell her." Declan laughed. Took a long pull from his beer. "Dad's like a vending machine," he said. "You just gotta know which buttons to push." The woman in sunglasses laughed. "He doesn't care, he cares," Noelle said, and her voice took on something fond and contemptuous at the same time. "The way you talk about a dog that keeps coming back after you shoot it away. He just can't say no. He never could. His whole thing is feeling needed." I stood there at the corner of my son's house for what felt like a very long time. Then I walked back to my truck, drove home, and sat in the kitchen until it got dark outside. I did not call. I did not text. I slept badly for a week and a half. And then I called my accountant, a woman named Patricia, who has been managing my finances for 19 years and who has never once told me what to do with my personal life, even when she clearly had opinions. I told her I was thinking about restructuring some of my regular transfers. She said okay. She asked no questions, which is one of the many reasons I have kept her around for 19 years. I also called my attorney, a man named Hargrove, who handled the sale of my business and several other things over the years. I told him I might need him to look at the mortgage arrangement, specifically the liability implications. He asked if I was a co-signer on the loan. I said I was. He told me what that meant, and what my options were, and what the process would look like. I took notes. I did not tell Declan any of this. 3 weeks later, Noelle called me about the mortgage payment. After I hung up, I waited 2 days. No call from Declan. Not a word. On the 3rd morning, I got a text from him. "Hey, Dad, what's going on with the house payment?" Noelle's stressed. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Is something wrong?" Not even, "Can we talk?" Just, "Noelle's stressed." I typed back, "Let's have dinner. Thursday, 6:30. My place." He said okay. They arrived 20 minutes late. Noelle came in first, which was unusual. She had a way of entering rooms a half step behind Declan, positioned as his second, but that night she was first through the door and already talking before her coat was off. "Dad, what's happening? We've been waiting for the payment, and we need to know when it's coming because if we miss the due date, there's a late fee and it's not small, and we've got other things going on this month." "Sit down," I said. "I made pasta." That shut her up for a second. We sat. I poured water. I served the pasta. We talked about nothing for a while. The weather, something Declan had seen on TV, a neighbor issue Noelle brought up, and then dropped. I was calm. I don't know if it came across as calm or strange, but I felt very clear, the way I used to feel before I had to fire someone. That particular stillness that comes when you've already made a decision and stopped going back and forth on it. When we were done eating, I put my fork down and said, "I'm not going to make any more mortgage payments." The table went very quiet. Declan looked at Noelle. Noelle looked at me. "What?" she said. "I'm not going to continue covering the mortgage, or the car payment, or the utility supplement I've been sending quarterly." Declan's face did something complicated. "Dad, I'm also going to be consulting with Hargrove about removing myself from the loan co-signature. That'll take some time on the paperwork side, but it's in motion. You can't just... Noelle stopped herself, started again. Do you understand what that does to us? We can't cover that payment ourselves. You know that. You know our situation. I do know your situation, I said. I've known it for 3 years. That's actually the problem. She looked at me. I think she was trying to figure out if I was angry. I wasn't, particularly. What I was feeling was closer to grief, and under that, something else. Something that had been building for a while and was finally solid enough to stand on. I heard what you said at the house, I told Declan. He didn't say anything. His jaw moved slightly. The vending machine thing, I said. I've been thinking about that. The color changed in his face. Dad. His voice was low. I didn't mean... I know you meant it, I said. That's okay. It was honest. That's more than most of our conversations have been. Noelle was already pivoting. This is an overreaction. You were offended, and that's understandable. But this is a significant financial decision based on hurt feelings, and I really think you need to, Noelle. I said it quietly. I've made the decision. She went silent. Declan didn't speak for a long moment. Then he said, "So that's it? After everything?" I looked at my son across the table. He was 33 years old. He had his mother's eyes and my father's chin, and 33 years of a life I had subsidized almost entirely. And sitting there, he looked very young and very certain that something was being done to him. "I love you," I said. "That hasn't changed, but I'm done." They left without dessert. The next 2 weeks were not clean or easy. Declan called 4 times. Noelle's mother called once. I didn't know she had my number, and delivered a very measured speech about family responsibility that I listened to completely before saying as politely as I knew how, that with respect, this was between me and my son. Her parents, I had noted, had contributed a honeymoon and nothing else across 4 years, which made their opinions on my obligations feel somewhat academic. There was a letter, handwritten, from Declan, 3 pages, which was the most sustained effort I had seen from him in years. It was not a bad letter. It said things about regret, and about his mother, and about feeling like he never knew how to talk to me. Some of it was true, I think. Some of it was true, I think. Some of it was strategic. I read it 3 times, and I felt the thing any parent feels reading something like that, which is the exhausting wish that it could have come sooner and under different circumstances. I wrote back. 1 page. I told him I'd received the letter, and I appreciated it. I told him I hoped we could find a way to have an honest relationship when he was ready for that. I told him I was not the vending machine, and I was not the guy with the buttons. And I was also not a man who could be guilt-tripped into anything anymore, because I was 63 years old, and my wife was gone, and I was tired of performing the role of an ATM with feelings. I didn't send that last sentence, but I thought it. Hargrove got me off the co-signature. It took 6 weeks. The house went on the market 9 weeks after our dinner. Declan told me this in a voicemail, not directly, as if he were reporting news about strangers. They were moving to Scottsdale to be closer to Noelle's parents. He said this like it was something they'd been planning. Maybe it was. It is September now. I woke up early this morning and had coffee on the porch and watched the cardinal. And I thought about how different the silence is when you've chosen it versus when it's chosen for you. I don't know what happens next with my son. I hope something does. I hope one day he comes to me without needing anything, just comes to sit on this porch and drink coffee and exist in the same space for a while. The way fathers and sons can sometimes do when all the money is out of the equation. My brother came to visit last week. We drove down to Tennessee for 3 days, hiked a trail Rosalind always said she wanted to do. The leaves were just starting to turn. It was one of the better 3 days I've had in a while. On the drive back, my brother asked me if I had any regrets. I thought about it for a while, the way you do when someone asks a real question. "I regret it took me this long," I said. He nodded. He didn't say anything else. Some things don't need anything else. Some things don't need anything else.